Between 2019 and 2022, Deepak Nitrite underwent remarkable transformation. The company bet hugely on one project which paid off massively. The share price of the company multiplied 7 times during this period. But then something changed. Since its 2022 peak, share price has never crossed that level again. In this video, we will look at why the stock of Deepak Nitrite first created massive value for the shareholders but later lost value. As of 2019, Deepak Nitrite was positioned as the manufacturer of basic chemicals and specialty chemicals with the revenue of rupees 2,700 crores and total shareholders equity of rupees 1,000 crores in FY19. The company was one of the leaders in its segment and generated decent returns on the capital employed. Then management made a big decision. They allocated approximately rupees 1,400 crores to build a phenol and acetone plant. The project was even larger than the company's existing size. Within just 3 years, revenue of the company more than doubled, net profit multiplied by staggering 6 times, and share prices multiplied by more than 7 times. The bet delivered massive value to the shareholders. But fast forward 3 more years, the company's revenue barely increased, net profit declined, and stock lost the shareholders' value. So the question is, how did one large capex first transform Deepak Nitrite into building shareholders' wealth but later lost value? What is the investing concept that can be extracted, and what is the lesson that can be learned from this case study? During 2019, India was already consuming large quantities of phenol and acetone. These are the basic chemicals used to make everything from the paints to pharma to plastic. The demand historically was met entirely through imports. But for customers, import means higher delivery time, higher inventory level, and the risk of unavailability of products during uncertain times. This means the market for phenol and acetone was already there, and there was an opportunity to bridge the domestic demand with the domestic supply. There was an opportunity to act as an import substitute which would be beneficial for the domestic customers. Looking at this, the management of Deepak Nitrite decided to enter this market. They decided to put up a large-scale integrated plant to manufacture the product reliably and compete against imports. They partnered with globally recognized licensors like KBR Inc. and Honeywell UOP for manufacturing process. The management saw a high reward situation. Company can become the largest domestic producer which can replace imports. It was also planning to get into high margin downstream products later on. But there were also several risks involved with this situation. Products were highly cyclical commodities. The plant was of massive scale and outside their operational expertise. And the result, the plant achieved positive operating profitability very quickly. Within just 3 years, capacity utilization crossed 100% and moved well above the original rated capacity. This means that the plant was producing more than it was designed for, which is a sign of strong execution and demand. The financial change was also very much visible across almost every parameter. The consolidated revenue increased from rupees 2,700 crores in FY19 to rupees 6,800 crores in FY22. Net profit grew 6 times from rupees 170 crores in FY19 to over rupees 1,000 crores in FY22. Return on capital crossed 40% in FY22. Now just to give you a sense, ROC of more than 20% indicates a high quality business. This was a massive improvement in the performance of the business. This happened because of the combination of 3 factors. Firstly, company built large-scale integrated plant which gave the company the advantage of economies of scale. This gave company the advantage of operating leverage and better control over their manufacturing chain. Secondly, company ramped up quickly and later operated above its original nameplate capacity. This suggests that the company showed genuine execution capability, customer acceptance and operational efficiency. And lastly, company developed downstream products like isopropyl alcohol, which were high value, high margin products. These are the things that were under company's control and they did very well. But there was an external factor that was unusually supportive. The COVID-19 pandemic hit in 2022. During pandemic, two things happened. Firstly, the demand for phenol, acetone and isopropyl alcohol has increased dramatically as they are used to make hand sanitizers and disinfectants. And secondly, the global supply chain was disrupted. Import was no longer just the question of price, so the delivery of products became uncertain. These two things created an extraordinary demand for the domestic players like Deepak Nitrite. So, the large scale and well executed project and pandemic gave boost to the company's performance. Sales volume increased drastically, also margins increased drastically. This performance just mesmerized the share market, taking the stock price up sevenfold in just 3 years, providing massive value to the shareholders. But soon after 2022, the demand started normalizing. Also, as supply chain started getting reorganized, more supplies came into the market. This resulted in the shrinkage of the margin, and the extraordinary profits that were present earlier because of the extraordinary demand were now gone. And so the performance of the company also shrank in the following years. Return on capital, which was over 40% in FY22, was just 15% in FY25. This resulted in the share price of the company falling from FY22 to FY25, and that is how the shareholders lost value. So, to summarize the above explanation, the cyclical tailwind pushed the company's profits upwards from FY19 to FY22. The company got the advantage of being in the right place at the right time. But as the tailwind stopped, profits came back to normal. And this is why the share price of Deepak Nitrite first created massive value to the shareholders but later lost value. Now, the key investing concept that can be extracted from this case study is to always separate permanent earning power from temporary peak profitability. Any company's operating profitability can be divided into two parts: structural earning power and cyclical tailwind. Structural earning power comes from capacity, scale and operating efficiency, whereas cyclical tailwind comes from temporary demand surge, shortages and restricted imports. The thing to remember is that the cyclical component may disappear when demand normalizes. This brings me to the key lesson that we can learn. Always separate structural from cyclical. In other words, this means always separate volume growth from margin expansion. When profits rise after capex, do not only look at revenue and profit. Ask how much of profit came from additional volume and how much came from better pricing. A profit from more tons at normal margins is different from the same tons at temporarily high margins. Remember, strong industry conditions can make an average asset look exceptional. The task of the investor is to separate capability from circumstance, structural from cyclical, and permanent earning power from temporary peak earnings. And this brings me to the end of this video. If this video provided value to you, please like this video and subscribe to this channel. Thank you for watching.